Every idea starts somewhere. I still remember sitting at a dimly lit orange desk and scribbling away from notebook to notebook. I would write stories about people turning into chocolate and animal astronauts and really cheesy stories that ended with morals and a bunch of other stuff that we'll just bury away. And then I slowly turned into this kid who would keep writing poetry under my desk during classes constantly, to the point where my friends and I would literally have bets to see whether I could write a poem about the most obscure things. I've written far more poems about ketchup and rubber bands than I would care to admit. Everything seemed to start from some sort of small trigger. I would write skits for biology classes with one too many attempts at dad jokes, and if you opened my notebook at the wrong time, you would find deeply moving, passionate essays by a 12-year-old about 25-year-olds and their life struggles. The point is, I now recognize that I was never afraid to explore. I think that as we grow older, whether we're creative or not, we tend to lose that openness to exploring the possibilities that we contain. As we grow more and more conscious of what other people think of us, it tends to seep into the work that we allow ourselves to create. What we don't realize is that as we slowly lose this willingness to explore, we also let go of our playgrounds bit by bit. Every idea does start somewhere, but only if you give it a place to start from. A place where it can take its first few steps without the fear of falling, constantly looming overhead. And I think that's where it all started working out for me. Allowing those moments of imperfection, whether I recognize them or not. That's how you grow. That's how I've been growing. I can confidently say that I won't be able to make it through any of my books without cringing the whole way through. But maybe that's how I'll reach a point sometime where I will be able to say, wow, I've had an impact on somebody's life. It could be 10 years from now, it could be 20 years from now. But the only way that happens is by allowing that growth through imperfection. One of the main things is you don't have to always be sitting in a room and brainstorming for that moment to happen. You could just be having fun. You could be taking a long drive or playing a sport and inspiration could strike. Or maybe it doesn't, and that's okay too. Everything is a part of the natural process to just figuring out where you want to be in life, what kind of person you want to be. And if that means having fun along the way, do that too. You would be surprised how much you can find in your own mind if you just open yourself up and look past that fear of vulnerability for even a minute. One of the first few stories I ever wrote was called The Mango Pickle. It was about a mom who attempted some ancient family recipe for mango pickle and for a grumpy uncle, and she came up with this weird combination of ingredients, etc., etc. Clearly, my 9-year-old mind barely even knew to worry about what other people thought of me. I'm 17 now and constantly wondering how what I write will affect the people that read it, the thousands of directions that their thoughts may take them in. And I can only imagine how it gets as I grow older. But for now, try and remember your 9th birthday. Do you remember that feeling of being just completely carefree, spilling over with excitement at the littlest things? I don't even think I knew how to spell the word inspiration when I was 9. But there I was, letting myself be inspired. So hold on to that feeling of being uninhibited in looking for ideas. Another main thing is to constantly keep looking around you for inspiration. Growing up, I remember my grandmother spending hours on end every night telling me stories. She would come up with these fantastical tales, and based on my demands for the day, whether it was the characters or the settings or the plot itself. Looking back, I will forever wonder how she did it. How she spun these entire new worlds within the very stingy 3.5 minutes that my 6-year-old self would give her. As I grew older, I started asking her for stories about her own wild child days, her travels to the Himalayas a few years ago, her chance encounters with strangers. And that's where I discovered her magic trick. She was consciously, cleverly using her own unique experiences, the unique stories that only she could tell to fuel her imagination and her creativity. I was so wrapped up with trying to find this complex, unique idea inside myself that I hadn't stopped to consider that me and everyone around me, we've all been through these unique, complex experiences. In some way or form, we are all living, breathing stories. So just observe. I genuinely believe, as cliche as it may sound, that inspiration lies all around us, whether it's in seeking new experiences or enjoying the familiarity of old ones. Just observe. But to me, inspiration is a very heavy word. It feels like something that when you have it, you hold the keys to everything. To be inspired, to have a sense of purpose, it should be such an electrifying feeling. So it's no surprise that there are a lot of times when no idea ever feels good enough. No idea feels like it brings you that jolt of inspiration, that feeling that you're going to do something great now. But that's okay. Honestly, inspiration lies everywhere. You need to allow yourself to have the bad ideas, the maybe not so great ones, to start getting to the good ones. Because there's one thing that I can assure you that every one of us will face at least once in our lifetime. A blank mind is probably one of the most dreaded parts of any process. Where you're sitting down here to create this masterpiece, and suddenly you've just spent 2 hours staring at a blank screen. It's frustrating because I think it's interesting that as people, our minds are constantly overflowing with thoughts and ideas and opinions, but when we're presented with something so empty and ready to be filled with absolutely anything, we're blank, we're stuck, and just blocked through and through. I genuinely believe that we underestimate our own capability to overcome the complications that we create for ourselves. Just let go of any inhibitions once again. It's about being vulnerable with those not so great ideas, with the ideas that you don't think are worthy of any attention or time. Let them out, and you'll start getting to the good ones pretty soon. I've talked a lot about my 3 books that are out there for the world to see. So let's now talk about the many that aren't. I'm talking about half-written novels, scrapped short stories, dramatic poetry that will never see the light of day. I have manuscripts with stories about color-changing hair and mythological quests, where the idea was definitely there. So what went wrong? What happened? I like to call this the golden ticket mentality. Our heads are constantly racing with these ideas. Each one seems better than the previous. And soon enough, we get so wrapped up in the thought of this idea being the idea that we forget to think it through. At least that's what happens to me. Either I forget to think it through, or a better one comes along and while I'm working on this one. And cue the cycle all over again. I think it's important to realize that we spend too much time thinking of the idea, that when we finally get it, we don't think about the idea enough. Working on it, seeing it to some shape or form. So when you're looking for inspiration, when you find your idea, when you find that inspiration, ask yourself this one question. Are you inspired by your own idea? So whenever I'm looking for inspiration, I try to remember these 4 things. 1, be the 9-year-old. Be unafraid to explore. 2, look around you. The world is waiting to inspire you. 3, it's good to let the bad ideas happen once in a while. And finally, think it through. The golden ticket lies in the process, not the moment. Thank you very much.